Hello and welcome. We'll just wait a few minutes for people to join. Right. Let's get started. So welcome to this presentation about how to improve your skills with the Aillio Bullet. And this first graphic is just a question about a bit of the anticipation, what you can expect during this presentation. So as you can see, there are some graphics that illustrates that the current forms are a bit overcomplicated in terms of paperworks, as you can see with the pile of paper. And also some of the, basically the forms, I think they claim to be scientific, but they are kind of some creative additions to something that might be scientific. And that's why I have Mona Lisa with the hat and glasses, because I've added a bit of my creativity. So my point is that if you have some classics, you can't just add something. It needs to be of the same quality as the classic that you claim to build on, which is not the case with the old or the new form from SCA, which I think is really frustrating. I think it's the responsibility of the association to give us the best and not just kind of claims that we are going to the moon and then just stick some New Year's Eve rockets on a what's it called some kind of cardboard roll left over from your tissues in the kitchen. You need to it's not enough with a ambitious vision. You also need the competencies and the skills to create something, that a vehicle that is actually bringing us there. And I think I'm so surprised and disappointed. So this is why um, CoffeeMind has really tried to bring science to the community, and this presentation is telling you about how we will do this using the bullet. So if you have a bullet or if you have access to a bullet, we actually have created software and methods so that we can bring the methods used at the universities the last 50 years to train professional panels at the universities. We can actually bring that to your roastery. You don't need to travel, no hotels, flights. It's just a one-day event where you will need to have a friend or a colleague who will be my extended hand, and then I'll make sure using the bullet to create the samples needed, and your friend will then be instructed by the software on how to set it all up. So yeah, that was just to kind of get it started. That's the first slide. So why we focus so much on sensory is that sensory is really the point of everything we're doing, and we are speaking out quite directly about SCA and CQI's methodology and how it rubs against the way, well, CoffeeMind's approach is not really CoffeeMind's approach. It's just science as it has been established by the scientists. So we're just the messengers. And that's why it really rubs against us that SCA and CQI are just handling methodology as if it's not really important do a good job on the methodology. It's all about getting it disseminated and get a lot of people doing it rather than making sure to do it right. So it's CoffeeMind's mission to help coffee roasters build professional or purposeful businesses. So purposeful, it should be aligned with your purpose of building a business. And sensory proven methods are really the best to make sure that what you do is relevant for your business and not just some general forms. And you also need some really clear systems. And you can see if the systems are not clear, but just a pile of paperwork, you can't really use it. It can't be associated or aligned with your purpose because they keep on asking you to do things that might not even be relevant for you. So the purpose of this presentation is to help you build a respected roastery that reflects your personal passion and purpose without getting stuck in pseudoscience, confused and advised, and overcomplicated systems, because this is everywhere, and this is what we really want you to steer clear of. So the path to a respected roastery begins with this one shift in your belief. So you should seek on advice only based on sensory proven facts, not anecdotes. And this will kind of give you a lot of confidence and also self-respect and also respect from others if what you are doing is based on rock solid sensory facts rather than anecdotes. So you should be following proven science and not pseudoscience, such as SCA and CQI is building on. So, and the result is that you can really roast with confidence and then build your business with the purpose that you really believe in, and only then you start to respect yourself, not just following somebody else's forms or curves. So this presentation answers the question: what would it look like to get scientific-based confidence based on self-insight into your own sensory skills? This makes you able to make your own decisions without leaning on anecdotal and overcomplicated sensory forms, or oversimplified context-less roast curve advice. That is what people normally get. You get a form, it's overcomplicated, you don't understand what you're doing, and then you get some oversimplified roast curve advice without people even asking, what is the purpose of this? Where are you going with this? So CoffeeMind has been working with roasting and sensory analysis for many years, and actually I've been working for 2 decades now with this, and with Ida it's been 10 years of really going deep in sensory science. So that's the basis of what we do, and we've published scientific papers about this, but most importantly we've been teaching more than 2,000 individuals in small groups of 6 to 8, and consulted a lot of roasteries worldwide. So we have a lot of experience in both teaching and research. And if you are more interested in scientific methodology, you can see here a QR code that will take you straight to our podcast, which is hours and hours of free education that really goes deep in what is sensory methodology. Just to tell you a bit about my background with Bullet. I heard about the roaster for many years, but only 4 years ago, I actually got one for the Academy, and I really fell in love with this machine. It's beautiful, that's one thing, but the technology is a consistent and solid machine, and then the software is also amazing. I think the software is easy to use, but it's also flexible enough so that you can do exactly what you want. And the recipe mode is almost like they got advice from me on how to plan a roast. They didn't get advice from me, so it's just we seem just to be very aligned with how you should approach roasting in a pretty simple way. Luckily Jonas has participated in in a podcast episode, which was amazing. And you can, of course, see that in the podcast if you follow the QR code. And we also work closely with the European distributor here in Copenhagen. And since the founders are Danish, there's a pretty strong foundation here in Copenhagen. And we often talk with each other, of course. So just a bit about my background, just quickly. I'll make it short, but I'll actually distill the very early realizations I had about simplicity and coffee roasting. That has been something that has been a guiding star for my approach, my scientific approach. And basically, what I realized then is exactly what I am applying now. So you can see here, I started at Contra in 2005 as the roast master, came straight out of university where I studied philosophy and biology. And I didn't know anything about the coffee community. So after some time, I heard there was something called the Roasters Guild of America, and you had to kind of know somebody to even get in. And I tried to get in through my contacts in Probat. And I also learned that there was something called Roast Magazine, and I got some issues of Roast Magazine. And also we heard about something called Cup of Excellence. So very early, we got our hands on these Cup of Excellence forms and thought, okay, now we'll cup like the experts does. And to our surprise, it's just, we filled out the form and felt this was a very, it's not that it didn't make sense, but it didn't really make sense. It just felt like we did something for the show of it that wasn't irrelevant, but a bit kind of far out in a sense, and we certainly couldn't use it in any way in our business. Because our customers had no idea what it was. We would kind of, if we scored something, we didn't really know how to interpret it. So we tried it and kind of felt, well, that's we don't kind of know what to use it for, and just dropped it again. And as you can see here, I roasted. So that was kind of the sensory methodology. We just thought we just have to kind of taste it and have our own opinion, and then develop the product we think are relevant. So we did on the L12, the old Probat roaster, and at some point I was taught how to kind of brown the beans by Kurt, the CEO, and then after 1.5 years, we got a 30-kilo roaster. Nobody knew how to operate it. And Contra was a really new, well, it was a startup, right? So we spent a lot of time getting the first customers. Getting a new roaster was quite nerve-wracking because it was an old vintage, even rebuilt vintage roaster. So there was no manual, and basically nobody knew how to operate it. So I had to kind of think back, and so what to do here, right? Because it was my responsibility to make sure that people felt they got the same products, because we just got a new roaster. We shouldn't change the products, right? So I just thought, okay, kind of coffee is moist in the beginning and dry in the end. And if something is moist, it needs a lot of energy in the beginning. At some point it starts to dry out, so you should add less. And in the end, it's certainly very dry, and even it's exothermic. So it would make sense to have least energy there. So a kind of a simple flame plan, right? So on the new roaster, high flame in the beginning, at some point turn it down, and in the end lowest, right? So that was the simplest model with the fewest assumptions. And if I made sure to also kind of build this plan, so I matched the time of first crack and development time, and make sure to match the color, I kind of thought, I hope the coffees will taste the same as on the old machine. And it worked. So it was really understanding this simplicity of it that was an epiphany for me. And then later, after 2 years, I was sent to South Korea because people had problems. And I thought I'll try to do the same, right? Just a kind of simple flame plan, match the time and to match the color, and it worked. So it's also very important to have really simple sensory evaluation. And for us, it's about starting and making sure that you understand the basic tastes and also the flavor categories. This is your solid ground. People tend to overcomplicate it by discussing if it's a blood orange or an orange, or discussing what kind of nut it is, where really, if people were tested, they couldn't really distinguish the nuts or the fruits from each other that they kind of tried to impose on the coffees. So get to know yourself when it comes to the basic taste and the flavor categories. This is where you gain confidence and certain knowledge. Yeah, sensory science. Because now I want to go in a bit into the sensory here, because this is the methodology that we'll apply on our training courses. Really, the sensory science as it has been taught at universities. And there are 3 steps in this. There's the discriminative, a descriptive, and an affective part of this. And this is very important. This is where both the old and the new system deviates, because it's very important when you start a project that you have a question that you are pursuing. And to answer that question, you need a set of samples. And the set of samples need to be different enough for you to even, before it makes sense to even describe it, and before it makes sense to even present it for some customers. Because if they taste the same, why you wouldn't expect any data, right? So you need to first prove that they are different. And then you also need to, once you've proven that they are different, then you need to describe them. And this is laboratory work. This is something you do with a trained panel who are sensitive and good at scoring intensities, not preferences, not quality. That's for the later link, right? Because first, when you've described the products, then you serve them to different customer segments, and preferences are actually not measuring anything about the products. It's measuring preferences. So it's measuring people, the preferences of people. And this is why quality is always closely tied to the people being measured and not the products, where the old SCA and the Q grader form kind of assume that they measure something about the product when they measure quality. They actually measure their own preferences. And this is why there's such a big confusion with the concept of quality. And this can be done very simply to kind of place the coffees on the wheel. That's a descriptive analysis. Of course, you'll do this after making sure that you could pick them out in triangles if you are in doubt if the differences are big enough. And then you can see here, you can do a preference test. Once you know the differences between the samples in terms of how they taste, could be light, medium, and dark. It could be natural, pulp natural, and washed, whatever you want to know about consumer preferences. And once you've kind of described it in the lab, take it to the street, and then you can see the different customer segments, which thermo empties first when you just serve this to different customers. And as you can see here, in science, and this is what makes the new form, the CVA form from SCA, makes it unscientific, that it's not simple. It's overcomplicated, because in sensory science, you ask a simple question and you ask for a simple answer. So the first you ask for is, are they different at all? And here you will do a discriminative test in a triangulation, where you will see, are people able to even point out the odd cup convincingly or not? If they are, you will take it to the descriptive, describe the products. And here you are simply asking for intensities on the descriptors that separates the samples from each other. And once you've kind of described the products, then you will send them or serve them to customers. And you can see that the customers will just score on a scale from 1 to 9 how much they like them. So that's it. Simple answers. You can see this is really simple. And if I should just compare it, you can see here, this is the SCA descriptive form and the affective form. The descriptive form, this is per coffee. Per coffee, you need to fill out all this. And you can see bitterness is not even a scoring. It's just a tick box. That's completely not serious. Bitterness is one of the things that really not serious. Bitterness is one of the things that really modulates a lot with both bitterness. So you cannot track the value that the customer put on the coffee if you don't track the intensity of bitterness in your descriptive step. And the affective form is way too overcomplicated. It should be, as I said, filled out or answered on by customers. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. A customer has no idea about what is the quality of the fragrance, the quality of the aroma, the quality of the flavor, the quality of the aftertaste, the quality of the acidity. It doesn't make sense for consumers. Quality of sweetness, mouthfeel, only the overall liking, not the overall quality. Consumers have got no idea what quality is. How much do they like it? It's the only thing a consumer can answer. So the affective form in science is a consumer preference measurement. And in the SCA CVA system here, it seems like it's assumptions to be filled out by the coffee experts. That's really bad data. Anybody who has been working just a bit with consumer science knows that you cannot predict what a consumer thinks. So you need to ask them, and you can't do that by just assuming that you know what they know already. So I don't know if we should just if you have some questions, please just write in the comments of the stream. And this way, I could answer your questions once in a while here during the webinar. So if you have questions, please just write them in the comment section. All right, I'll continue. So there's a slide here that I love. So because this is the foundation on scientific theories, that people think that I'm a bit harsh on cupping forms, because it's not that it doesn't make sense, right? It's not that people don't get any information at all. It's more like it's overcomplicated. And so what, right? Well, that's actually a really severe thing in science. It's really, and there's something called Occam's razor. And Occam's razor says that if you've got a phenomena and you've got two different explanations, choose the simpler one. And it seems like the coffee community loves the overcomplicated ones, or the complicated explanations, because it seems like we always get really complicated models every time people develop something, right? Oh, we got a new cupping form. And then, of course, it's completely overcomplicated. Why is it? It's kind of a tradition, right? And it's not that it's wrong. It's just that if the more complicated it is, the less you can use it with intuition. So you can see here the geocentric worldview, where the Earth is in the center. It's not wrong. You can make perfect mathematical function that predicts where the heavenly bodies are, or the solar, where every planet is in the solar system. But it's just overcomplicated. It's not very practical for daily use, and certainly you don't feel that you understand what you're doing. But if you assume that the sun is in the center, you get a nice, predictable, and very easy to work with model of the universe. Yeah, I already talked about this. So the whole point is that the with the forms that we use, we have very simple answers. You can see here the old 2004 form is you need to fill out a lot, and even and the new 2022 form, you need to fill out much more per sample. And in our software, we take responsibility to point out the descriptors per session that are relevant to track to describe the differences between the coffees. And here you can see our software. It's just really simple. What is the intensity per descriptor? And also in our software, the effective, the consumer part. If you have 4 samples, the only thing the consumer sees is A, B, C, D, the 4 samples, and they just need to score how much they like them on a like-it scale. Where the SCA, you need to fill out all of this, and it's not very clear if it's the professional or the consumer that needs to fill it out. So this is how simplicity versus complexity looks like. And I hope you agree that it's much clearer to keep it simple. So now I've been going through some of the models that are used in the current community, and now I want to explain to you what sensory science is, what descriptive analysis is. So this example illustrates this for you. So how can you describe the differences between samples? First you have 3 different samples, could be light, medium, dark. You serve them in replicates, in most cases triplicates, but could be 4 replicates in some instances. It depends on the session. So here you would serve them randomized, so you would mix up the sequence, make sure that everybody has their own personal sequence through the sample. So you can see the only thing they see is a cup with a 3-digit number. They've got no idea what it is, and then they have their own personal randomized sequence through all the cups of the session, and they score it on predefined descriptors. And this is what it looks like at the university when we do this, and this is what it looks like when we do it with CoffeeMind software, which is much more hands-on in more realistic daily settings than universities. And we actually have a scientific paper under publication where this method is used with our software. So what does data look like when you get it like this? To show you this, I have some samples from Poma. That's a Danish-based company. They roast here in the academy. They grow coffee in Denmark, so they do experiments in the university greenhouses. And when our panel creates data, we get a lot of data, right? A lot of these, if it's, let's say, in the Puma example, it was I think we had 8 cups, and they were scored on. It was 6 cups, and they were scored on 13 descriptors. So it's a lot of data. And in the data model, we can then look at how does it correlate? How does the attributes that the panel score, how do they correlate with the samples? And you can see here we've got 6 samples: Robusta, F1 Hybrid, Caturra, Liberica, Brevibus, and Heirloom. And we could see that was the blue labels. That's the products or the samples, and the red labels. Those are the sensory attributes that the panel scored. And this kind of visual correlation analysis showed us that the Robusta was more cereal, malty, and nutty, and the Ethiopian Heirloom was more bergamot and floral. And we can even see which of the samples would shift the different attributes significantly. So you can see here are p-values calculated per descriptor. And if the p-value is below 0.05, that's below 5% chance outcome, then we believe that a sample has shifted that descriptor. But we can actually look at it much more granularly, like this, where we can see per descriptor, we can see the different samples, and we can see if they were different or not. So this is something called a Tukey's post-hoc test that categorizes the sample. His post-hoc test that categorizes the samples instead of an A, and all the others has got a B, so that they are grouped if they have the same letter. You can see bergamot. The Ethiopian heirloom was significantly higher in bergamot, and all the others didn't differ enough to be significantly different. So here you can see per descriptor how these samples are clustering. So that's really, this is basically scientific state-of-the-art data. So this could actually go straight into a scientific journal. That's the quality of the data. And it's just because we haven't come up with anything. We just do exactly how they do at the universities. We've then created our own software to do this, but basically I haven't come up with a single plot. Actually, I have a bit later, but these are really standard ways of reporting sensory data. So remember, each assessor scored all samples several times on the same descriptors without knowing it. That means that for each assessor, we have really interesting data about their ability to score the same sample, the same on the same descriptor, when they get it 3 times without knowing that it's the same. So you can see this person, for astringency, the brevibus was always scored 8. So we got 3 dots on top of each other. This is perfect. No variation, right? It was really perfect every time. But when it comes to floral, this person scored it 2, 6, and 8 when they got the same sample 3 times without knowing it. So this person really needs to train on floral flavors, because it seems like they're not very good at scoring intensities on that. And you can see for each assessor, we can get this kind of feedback. And we've got different ways of looking at this. This is the plot that I've come up with myself to really go deep in this. But this is way out of scope to explain here. But you can think of all these data. You can see here we have other ways of illustrating per assessor how well people are in terms of variation per descriptor, but also how good they are at using each descriptor to discriminate the samples. Because if you just score everything 5, for example, you get very low variation, but you don't prove that you are able to actually taste and dynamically score differently when you get a different sample without knowing it. So think of this as almost like a hearing test you can get per descriptor. So that's per assessor skills feedback and chart. So if people are participating from the same company, they'll actually get a panel calibration feedback here. You can see, and this is per descriptor. So you can see here in this session for bitterness, assessor 295 and assessor 292, they were out of calibration when it comes to the overall panel average. And the panel average is considered the true scoring. And you can see 292 is out on astringent, and on blackberry, 280 and 281 uses the scale differently, which will punish us on the sample data later. So this is really important if you are from the same company. You can you can see if you are calibrated or not. Most people, they don't know this. They assume, most people think that calibration is just to align with the person talking out loudest. But this is calibration based on blind replicate data. Basically, this is what we can bring to you in your facilities remotely if you have a bullet. you can actually get specific feedback on your personal skills, but also on panel calibration. And because can you see, if you start to get to know yourself and know what to train, and you train your weaknesses and can see you improve, that gives you confidence. And if you've got confidence, you don't need to use all these overcomplicated copying forms, because you trust your own judgment based on data, not based on just speaking out loudest. So the way that you can participate in this is in 3 different ways. Either you can go here to us in Copenhagen and participate in the 4-day Roasting Professional, where all of this is integrated. Or you can go to Copenhagen and participate in a 1-day sensory performance class, where everything is prepared for you. You just show up and we'll kind of serve you, right? Or the third option, that is a virtual session, where you just need to have access to a bullet roaster so that your colleague or friend, my assistant basically, can roast the samples. And then you need to participate in this 1-day virtual live, where I will control what's on your table. I will collect data from your session using our software, so you'll get instant feedback and you'll get all the personal data or panel data that I just showed you for you and or your company. So there's a virtual option now to participate in this. And if you did not sign up for this webinar, and just kind of stumbled upon it when it was running live, you've missed out on getting a free PDF that the people signing up did. So you can scan this code, and then you can pick up your free PDF that is coffee roasting with simple scientific sensory methodology. It's a collection. It's 80 pages of practical how-to roasting, and also 2 scientific articles. So that's the first thing. But also, once you've got your free PDF, you will get to a page where you will get a special offer that's related to this webinar, where you can get a seat for the virtual sensory performance class, 300 euros. But in this on this special offer page, you will actually get bonuses worth of 140 euros on top of the 300 euros you pay. So you'll get the 3D print file of our CoffeeMind color palette, and you'll get all the complete collection of papers we have that would normally you would have to buy behind a paywall, worth at least 100 euros. And you'll also get free access to IDA's sensory basic e-learning course, value 30. So you'll get those bonuses if you get to this page. You will get an email, a follow-up email with a link to this as well. So this would be a way for you to kind of participate in this remotely or on site, and get some free bonuses. So that was basically what I wanted to tell you. So kind of a summary is that we are very critical and disagree with how sensory is taught by the big organizations. We think that we need to, as a trainer, the best thing we can do is to give you specific feedback on your skills, so you get confidence, so you dare to make your own decisions in your specific business context, and not just kind of filling out forms that you can only discuss with somebody else who is also filling out forms. It doesn't move the needle on your business or on your own developmental journey. Questions, if you feel like. So if you write some comment in the comment section, I can see your questions here, and just a second, I'll just write them in the comment section, and I should be able to see them. No questions to the course and or the things that I said about the SCA and CQI models? Nobody got offended enough to write a comment? That's fair enough. All right. But perhaps you also just want to have an early Friday, which is definitely also fair enough. But yeah, well, let's call it a week, and you will get an email with a reminder of this special offer. And I do hope to see you soon on any of our courses here in Copenhagen, or virtually, or in at World of Coffee in Geneva, where of course we will also be present.